Well, thank you, Richard, for that exceedingly kind introduction. And the video you saw has taken about 2/3 of my remarks out. So we'll be able to make this a faster evening. I want to thank everyone here at ICFJ for this honor, especially Joyce, who's so ably leading this organization through a period of great need. And I want to congratulate all of tonight's winners. Really, it's been an honor to be part of this evening. And I'm afraid I will not be as witty as they will be. I also want to express my gratitude to my cousin Michael Golden, the former vice chairman of the New York Times Company, who was such an important partner to me during my time as publisher, and I'm sorry that Michael couldn't be with us tonight. So it's wonderful to be with so many friends and so many colleagues and so much family. But I recognize where I am. The most dangerous place in the world is between a journalist and the bar. And I know I'm all that stands between you and the moonlight reception. So let me move quickly and just note that getting an award like this it helps you step back for a moment and reflect on the life you've lived and the purpose you've served. And in this moment of profound national difficulty and global tumult, I am immensely proud to have spent my career at the New York Times, to have led this institution that is so dedicated to independent, original journalism reported without fear or favor. And that mission, as was noted earlier, was handed down from my great-grandfather, and it speaks to what I believe is the highest and noblest role of the free press, holding power to account, which is what so many of you in this room do, and God bless you for that work. So I think it's been something that's been going on for many, many years, many decades, but it's more critical than ever to remember this today. Around the world, powerful voices are sowing seeds of distrust in the news media. Just yesterday, the White House revoked Jim Acosta's press credentials in retaliation for him doing his job. This is both troubling and chilling. As the Times said in an editorial published today, what is most alarming is the extent of Mr. Trump's ignorance of the role of a free press in American tradition and democracy. That ignorance reverberates from the Oval Office to China to Brazil, Saudi Arabia, and beyond. My son and successor as publisher, AG, warned President Trump this summer of that his inflammatory language is contributing to a rise in threats against journalists and will inevitably lead to violence. And tragically, AG's warning proved prescient. I had conveyed a similar meeting to the president 2 years ago, shortly after the election. On November 22nd, 2016, I arranged for then President-elect Trump to come to the Times for his first on-the-record interview after a somewhat unexpected victory. The day began inauspiciously. At 6:16 that morning, Trump announced on Twitter that he was canceling his interview with, quote, the New York Times. Thank you. After hours of back and forth with some of his colleagues, at 10:40 he retweeted that the interview was back on. By the time the afternoon was over, he had, in our boardroom, sat there praising the New York Times as a great, great American jewel. It was a dizzying day. But let me tell you a story about that day. Just prior to sitting down with our journalists, I met one-on-one with President-elect, not an unusual position for a publisher. Mostly he wanted to complain about our coverage. As I walked him into our boardroom, where our reporters and editors were waiting to ask the tough questions, that is their day job, I said, Mr. Trump, you're going to notice many, many photos, signed photos on the wall of our boardroom, including autographed photos of every president since Teddy Roosevelt. And I said, I look forward to having yours, which, by the way, we do have now. But I want to draw your attention to one in particular, not because of the photo, but because of what he wrote. To the New York Times, some read it and like it. Some read it and don't like it. But everybody reads it. Signed by Richard M. Nixon. And I said, Mr. Trump, that was the last president who took on a free press. Think how it ended for him. Sadly, I cannot say whether my message or my son's message this June registered with the president, but I can say that the New York Times has continued to seek the truth and hold power to account, undeterred by the president's anti-press invectiveness. We've continued to invest at a very challenging time in original, time-consuming journalism, and this is the core of the mission of the New York Times. I mean, just consider one, our major investigation into the Trump family finances. That single story took 18 months, 3 veteran investigative reporters with expertise in finance and taxes, 100,000 pages of documents, and a battalion of editors and lawyers to make sure every word was bulletproof. And as costly as that may be, we'll continue to invest in that kind of reporting because that's exactly what this moment demands. As everyone here knows, the advertising-based business model that sustained American journalism for generations has collapsed, not just in print, but also increasingly in digital. As my son recently sadly pointed out, the number of newspaper journalists in this country has declined faster than the number of coal miners. This is the challenge we face. But one of the great lessons I learned in my time as publisher is that people increasingly crave quality journalism. If you make something worth paying for, people will open their pockets to subscribe. And as has been noted, that they are indeed subscribing quite vigorously. And today, the Times has 4 million print and digital subscriptions, more than ever before and more than any American newspaper has ever had, even in the golden age of print journalism. We've expanded nationally, and as was also noted, we've really expanded internationally. We now have subscriptions in every country in the world. I'm trying to think, we may not have many in Antarctica, but we actually have some in North Korea. And this global reach comes at a critical time. A free press that's independent of the government is a linchpin of any well-functioning society, as has been noted time and again this evening. But it's still a challenge. To offer one stark example from here in the US, today 72% of Republicans say they'd rather get their news directly from President Trump's Twitter account, that is, from what is essentially state media, than from the independent press. And that's scary, and it has profound consequences. When autocratic rulers around the world see the President of the United States demean and attack reporters, they take note. They sense that the kind of harsh anti-press measures that in the past would have prompted a strong American response may no longer provoke retaliation or even condemnation. And we've seen the effect of that all around the world. And of course, we've seen it here in our own country. Those four journalists who were among those killed at the Capitol Gazette in Annapolis earlier this year by a man angry about the coverage. In the face of all these attacks, it's up to all of us in this room to fight for the free press. It's not our job to be the voice of the resistance, but it is our job to report the facts, to stand tall in defense of truth and trust, as my eloquent colleague Tom Friedman said in a Times column earlier this year, and in defense of our profession's responsibility to hold power to account. We must continue to report, we must continue to tell truths, we must continue to do our work no matter the obstacles we face. And we have to remember that we are all in this together. Looking out at all of you in this room, especially those of the reporters who have been honored tonight, I'm filled with confidence and I'm filled with hope. Confidence that you'll continue to fulfill our profession's noble purpose, and hope that the truth will win out, and tomorrow will